Well, hi, everybody. It is the official Do Good Better podcast. I am your host, Patrick Kirby. And of course, this show is all about featuring small nonprofits doing great big things. And I am beyond ecstatic to have not only one, but two guests today to talk about transition to green. I've got Diana Brand, who is the founder of the organization. And then I have the director of the foundation, Dr. Terence Kubar, with us today. How are both of you?
I'm great.
I'm doing really well today. Thank you so much for having us.
I am so looking forward to this. This is going to be a fantastic show. So I think for individuals who are tuning in for the first time, they've never heard of transition to green. They might not be in environmental circles. They might not have a lick of understanding of anything. So why don't you explain what transition to green as an organization is?
The main thing about transition to green is that we offer public educational outreach, and we do this as nonpartisan. And this is where we're different from other environmental groups, is that we're not focused on the activism and the politics part of it or being project-based. We're interested in doing the public educational outreach. So our forums are run like parties. They are 2 hours and they're timed. We bring in 2 guest host speakers, and sometimes we even bring in pets like this because we get involved with animal rescue.
If you're just listening to this, there's a very cute dogs on these. You have to go to YouTube to figure this out.
And she's a rescue too. Yeah, Violet Penelope.
I love it.
And we basically bring in guest host speakers that complement each other on a topic. So, for instance, at the beginning of the year, we'll focus on energy such as solar or wind, and somebody else might be talking about water filtration systems and water engineering. Mm-hmm. And so those two go together really well. We've also done other things where it's dealing with organic skincare. And I was surprised because I expected it to probably just appeal to women. And we went to a local, it was a woman who was considered, I always screw up this, anesthetician, where she's doing facials and stuff. Sure. And she had her own skincare line, and I thought the room was going to be filled with a lot of women. And it was really half and half. We had about 40 people, and so the men are interested in skincare as well. That's what I learned. And I thought that was good.
Dr. Terence, I think as somebody who is sort of interested in doing forums that are nonpartisan, what advantage does that give you to host sort of events like this? Is there sort of a reasoning behind that as sort of the nonpartisan role?
I think that's essential because we promote scientists and the scientific community, and there's not really necessarily a role on one side or the other towards environmental issues. It's more about public education and outreach. And we also promote, not only do we promote science literacy by attending a number of events put on by the scientific community, such as at Jet Propulsion Lab and Caltech. There are approximately monthly Earth Science talks, but also UCLA sustainability talks.
Yeah.
And so really education here is something that we would feel comfortable even taking and teaching children. So any age, it doesn't matter, and politics don't need to get into the way because the message and the data, the scientific data, as it were, about different environmental issues, whether or not it's climate, whether or not it's renewable energy, whether or not it's a whole host of other things that we can do to lessen our environmental impact. The numbers speak for themselves, and we focus on peer-reviewed research. And again, that's really kind of stripping away the partisanship there. And we want to invite the whole community too. We want a discussion. A lot of people are coming from different perspectives. Some folks may have different interests or have different concerns about the environment or about their community. And we want to do outreach to everyone. We don't want it to be exclusive to one side or the other. We want to be on the side of science and on the side of facts.
You know, being on the side of science, being on the side of facts, finding a sort of pathways to sort of environmental solutions is a big, hairy, audacious goal in itself. But as an organization, as Transition to Green, what from your organization do you have big plans? What's it's building? What's your big dream, big goal as an organization?
Well, I will take that one. We have started locally in the LA and Orange County areas, and the hope is that we can grow to be a state organization and then catch on and go national. So that's the big plan, yes.
And how do you do that? Do you start local and you sort of grow? What are the plans on how you get there? Yeah.
Yeah, it's grassroots. It's boots on the ground is how they like to say it, just in general with any kind of when you're starting as a smaller nonprofit, they say it's boots on the ground. So we do a lot of boots on the ground. And that's really door to door, meeting with people, whether it be at their homes, knocking on their door, or right there in the city center area where we're meeting with individual business owners or managers. Also with the council members, I literally go right into their office and say hi, give them our flyer. So, yeah.
Outstanding.
So that's what we do.
Your nonprofit is probably one of a lot who are involved in the environmental issues across both the country and probably even locally. California probably being a big sort of a breeding ground for sort of environmental issues. What does Transition to Green do better than other organizations, or how do you differentiate yourself that makes you so successful on your way to sort of national outreach? And Dr. Terence, if you wouldn't mind taking that.
As Diana was mentioning, and I'm just going to emphasize this again, a lot of the different environmental nonprofits out there have a strong political bent or an activist bent. And there's a role for all of that out there, whether or not it's health issues or environmental issues. And a lot of them are more partisan in the sense that they really have some sort of an agenda. It's not necessarily about sticking to the facts, as it were, about a lot of different issues. Sometimes they do, but sometimes there's a lot of cherry picking as well in terms of what is suitable for their statement that they're after or what their project is after. So Diana mentioned our forums. We also have a lot of extracurricular activities. And as an example of an activity we just did a few days ago, we have monthly hikes, and these are moderate hikes that are family friendly for the community. And they're usually about 3 to 3.5 miles. But it's not just a hike, it's also public education in nature. We're stopping along the way, pointing out some of the native trees that we see in our city parks. Mm-hmm. What's the health of our environment? California, we have droughts for a number of years, and then we'll have very wet years. And so we just came out of a drought a few years ago, and there were a whole grove of native black walnut trees in one of our local city parks. A few years ago, a lot of us thought all these trees perished. A lot of trees did die in California. They're showing revitalization signs, even though a lot of them are bare. And it's remarkable to see how resilient these trees are, and it seems as though they're going to make it. So these are sorts of things that we're bringing to the attention of the community. And then, so it's not only local environmental issues like the health of our trees. I always give a little bit of a weather and climate summary myself. You know, what's the state of the climate this year in Southern California? And then we touch upon other topics as well. For instance, last week, we had a nice turnout and a really interesting conversation about the bushfires in Australia. And one of our participants brought up the issue of Aboriginal firefighting techniques in Australia, Indigenous people using historic methods to actually kind of keep fires under a state of balance, unlike what they are right now. And so, interesting discussion. we did some further research on that and made an educational post to our Facebook and Meetup sites about the history of indigenous firefighting techniques, how that potentially could be done much more, and how it's only being done on a very small scale right now. So this was not an area that was really highlighted in the public media so much. And yes, there's lots of devastation, but we're always looking for solutions and alternative solutions too, based on science and based on evidence, not the doom and gloom kinds of headlines that are unfortunately way too common, even in the scientific media, unfortunately. So we're really trying to see what are the solutions out there for folks, and what can we do locally, and what can we do as a community.
I really think that's a nice moment there where you're taking a more positive, listen, all is not lost sort of attitude to the organization, which you rarely see and rarely hear of, right? Yeah. It's always an emergency, always kind of something that's tragic. And I love the fact that you're sort of doing this in a idea, but making it personal sort of way. It's almost like a face-to-face podcast / TED talk that you're giving, and in person. And I think as people are watching this on YouTube, or they're watching or listening to it on one of their podcast streaming things, this is great. You guys are having these type of discussions face to face and sort of relating it in a more positive way, which I think is, again, nobody is doing that type of.
We're also introducing people to things that are health and wellness and the other environmental issues that are going on. There's a lot of greenwashing that happens. Mm-hmm. So telling people what is greenwashing, educating them on that as well, which basically is that extremism that slips in there. And there's a lot of this labeling that goes on, and it's general. Mm-hmm. They package it in a very general way. There's really no science or facts behind a lot of this stuff, unfortunately. And a lot,
and yet this is accessible. And I think that's really one of the unique pieces to this, is it sounds very accessible. It doesn't sound preachy. It doesn't sound sort of, I'm never going to be able to understand the type of things. And if you're just tuning in to this, well, this is the first time, which I think this will be the first time and then the only time that we actually have an atmospheric scientist on as someone who's a guest on the show, like exponentially smarter than your host here. That's the type of sort of soft approach I think you guys are taking, which is sort of leads me to my next question, which is maybe some of the documented successes that you've had at your nonprofit, and what are you doing to connect the dots to make this approachable and sort of bridge some of these gaps of either misinformation or political information rather than facts and sciences. What are some of these successes that you guys have had so far?
I'll say at the forums, they're run like a party, so everything's moving pretty quickly. It's 20 minutes where the first person guest host will kick off the discussion. And again, the people that are there hopefully are going to want to participate. But if you're a shy person, that's fine. You can hang back. Yeah. But we do get people involved with icebreakers. And this is successful. People enjoy that because then in the end, everyone feels like they know one another in the room. You feel much closer and bonded, and this is a community that's very diverse. We're bringing in people from all different areas, different fields like engineers, again, scientists from the science community, teachers, and people from the city council, and then people that are right there in the community itself. So, and then of course we reach out to different minority areas as well to bring them in. We don't want anyone overlooked. Mm-hmm. And so these gatherings, what we found is most people do want to come back, and we're giving away and this is sponsored goods, samples. So for instance, when we have someone talking about energy, like if a solar company comes in, they will give out nice, $1,000 off on your first solar system kind of thing. There is no sales. There's just gifts. That's the other thing. People have the opportunity to try some of this stuff, and everyone walks away with sample gifts. So that's what makes it fun. People get to try, whether it's a product or a service.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I think, again, sort of stepping on kind of what we talked about earlier, which is sort of this cloud of positivity that you guys are forming sort of over your organization transition to green.
Okay.
I would ask that we get to actually celebrate a win with you guys today. Again, we talk a lot about it in sort of our discussions in multiple podcasts like this, which is nonprofits don't celebrate enough. They kind of think it's bragging. It's not. We donors and supporters want to be a part of teams that are doing great stuff. So maybe, and you know what? We'll try this even too. Let's do a local win at your organization, and then Dr. Terence, if you want to give us like a global win to make us all feel like the whole thing is not for naught, that would be even better. So let's go global first, and then we'll move it down to transition to green win. Dr. Terence, what's a big win environmentally speaking that we can celebrate and not feel bad about?
I'm going to just touch upon something that we just shared and posted an essay about on our Facebook page a few weeks ago. And I think it's a win. I think it's a step in the right direction. Emissions from coal produced power in 2019 were down approximately 3% or so, which is a big change of course compared to how we were going, or compared to even how some projections had the world going further and further into bigger coal use. So a 3% reduction, not huge, but actually pretty substantial in a statistical sense. So I would say that's big. And the projections for the near future are kind of a leveling off of carbon dioxide emissions instead of going up and up. So we are still emitting as a global community, and that we want those emissions to come down. But I look at positive trends, and I interpret the data sometimes a little bit differently. I'm eternally an optimist, so I look for some of these bright spots as well that aren't always getting the attention that they should.
I appreciate that. As
I like that.
You know, sort of get ready for a vacation, you're trying to lose some weight, you lose 3 pounds, and then you kind of plateau. Hey, I haven't gained anymore. My pants fit better, and this is great. I'm going to take that as a win.
Exactly.
Diana, give me an organization win that we can celebrate.
Well, actually, this is a business. It's called Bambuco, and they sell primarily bamboo items, whether it's a toothbrush, a brush, different things that are made out of bamboo. And I took an interview with them, and they're going to put it into their magazine. Ooh. And at some point, I will get a copy of that, and I will share that. And I think that's a big win.
That's a massive win for your organization. I love it. We'll cross-post it on all these.
Bambuco.
I love it. Thank you, Bambuco. I like it. All right. Well, it's time to share the love, because we want to show appreciation to everybody that kind of helps you get to where you are. We understand that not all nonprofits can get success without sort of leaning on some folks. So why don't we kind of share some individual or businesses that deserve a shout out from you at Transition to Green. So who do you want to give a shout out to that's helped you get sort of over a hump, or sort of working together at the same time?
Which one would you like to go first?
You name it.
Okay, well,
you got the floor.
I love Planet Rehab, and Gary Mitchell is the founder and the director, and he moved with his partner to Panama, and they have a big center there where they're going to be giving tours and showing people how to do different things in that environment. Like, they have different types of frogs there. They're, I think, working with a university there to identify these frogs and kind of have an idea of how many are in each area. So they kind of chart all this stuff out, and getting other people involved to help with that project is going to be really cool. There's a lot of other things that they're doing there that's exciting. So I'm hoping to go on one of those tours soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dr. Terence, as an organization, small of the group that's kind of working in there, we always like to lift up other organizations in either the same environment we're going for, or, you know, because again, rising tide helps all ships. Is there an organization, is there a group in your community that sort of deserves some kudos from Transition to Green about doing great things, even if you might not be in the same sort of realm?
Absolutely. So one of our other extracurricular activities that we enjoy every year are quarterly bike rides, family-friendly bike rides. And just before Christmas, we have our annual festive bike ride. And that's in the San Gabriel Valley area. And we have received support over the last few years from a bike organization, a local bike organization called Bike SGV. It stands for San Gabriel Valley. They now call themselves Active SGV. But what they're promoting or what they're working on is better biking, safe biking infrastructure, and also better safety for pedestrians as well, to make our communities more bike and walking friendly. And they always show their support for our annual festive bike ride and some of the other events too. And we've shown mutual support for some of their bigger regional rides as well. So that's just a great group. And kind of related to them is a Pasadena group called Pasadena's Complete Streets. And I think it's very amenable to the Bike SGV because they're also working on safer infrastructure for not always using a car. If you wanted to use public transit, as I do, I'm a big public transit advocate. If you want to walk or bike and not have to jump into your car for every single trip, they're working on better solutions for that and better infrastructure for our city and the area.
I love that. And I love the fact that small nonprofits like yourselves always realize that there are partners surrounding you. And again, we know that smaller nonprofits, medium-sized nonprofits love the idea of sort of collaboration a whole heck of a lot more than those big boys and girls do. So kudos for you, and kudos to the other organizations who are helping you guys out. Well, the part of the show where I want to give something back to you. I'm here to answer any fundraising question that you might have. Let me help transition to green. If you got a fundraising question, shoot it. We'll try to answer it live for you right now.
This is a question. I'm thinking not just podcasts, but at some point, Transition to Green should put together some sort of a media package and send it out to the local radio stations. Mm-hmm. What is your view on that? Like KCET, I think it would be one of them.
Yeah, no, I love that. In fact, I think you're going to get a more active listening audience to your message on radio than you will on TV or any sort of other thing, because especially AM or talk radio, regardless of what side of the aisle they sit on, it doesn't really matter. They're the individuals who are listening to that are captive, and they're captive through commercial breaks and et cetera. Offering to come on just to talk about an update, right? So Dr. Terence giving a positive spin on an environmental nugget of information, some good news from Transition to Green. You know, Diana kind of talking about an opportunity that people have, or to update them on what you learned at one of your gatherings, I think would be an ideal way. And that's just going to get you to be able to tell your story on what you do and who you are as an organization, which inevitably leads to people asking, how can I help? Which then inevitably leads you to saying, if only you had giant sacks of cash that you'd like to give us, because we could do so much better. So I love that idea, but do offer value to the listening audiences.
Yes.
It's just going to get in front of more people who are, again, actively trying to either understand or sort of conceptualize what they can do to help, because everybody wants to, they just don't know how, and you can give them a reaction. So
what about also, I've noticed in movie houses that during the time where you're waiting before the trailers even begin, they'll typically show advertisements that are just cards, like postcards dropping down. I've never checked into this, but I thought if we had the funding, that might also be a good thing to have a Transition to Green card, community card come down.
Yeah.
It would be reaching a lot of people.
I think you would. Though I think the benefit of meeting people in face-to-face person and handing them personally that card might be actually more beneficial to you in the long run. I'm just saying, it might be a good
That's
one.
what we do. Well,
hey, I want to, we're kind of coming to the close of the show, but I want to make sure that you guys have the floor to sort of make an ask, promote anything you want to do coming up. how people can get a hold of you, how people can help, how they can support Transition to Green. They're looking at you two, or they're listening to you two and saying, this is something that I need to get behind because it's something unique and different and nonpartisan and very educational. Sounds fun. Even if I'm in frozen tundra, North Dakota, and you are in warm and sunny California, how can we help you? The floor is yours. Diana, you want to start? How can we help?
All right. We have a Facebook page. We don't have a group because we're not doing anything within a group. We don't have the time actually, but we do have this Facebook page where we promote not just our own produced articles. We also share what's going on around the world globally, and we really do screen what we're going to post before we post it. So we're getting things that are fact checked and part of the science that's real. So if you go to our Facebook page and you like it and you follow us, that would be wonderful. The other thing is the Meetup. We're on Meetup, and if you're local, that would be where you would find out where all of our events are to stay current with us.
Outstanding. Dr. Terence, how can we help you?
Yes, and I'll just mention for that Meetup web address, that's meetup.com/transition, spelled out -2TO-green. And so all of our local events are posted there. And as such, I'm going to just put a shout out to our Eco Book Club, which we have approximately every 8 to 12 weeks we meet. And some of the books that we've talked about before included Rachel Carson's Edge of the Sea a couple years ago. Beautifully written book from the 1950s. This was a biologist, a scientist, and beautiful because it was very poetic in how it was describing these intricate ecosystems in micro parts of the coastline. So really, the title is very apt. It was describing all these intricate and the fragility of these ecosystems at
I love it.
the coastline, the land surface.
There's dropout for some reason.
That sounds cool, actually.
Did it just drop out?
I think he just dropped out. He was so excited about telling about books. This was unbelievable. That was kind of the best part. Well, here's the thing. If everybody's got $30, they've got $30. Kind of sounds cool. If we've got
are we back online? I'm not sure.
You are, your voice is, but I don't see your image.
I see an image. A nice little face right there. I like that.
Okay.
I got you now. I got you back on.
Okay. I don't know what happened there. It was just a glitch.
It was a glitch in the matrix. It's probably too cold up here in North Dakota to handle.
Yeah. It looks like we lost him again.
No, we're good.
Okay. You've lost me again.
You're here.
Okay. We also talked about, this was a more technical book, but it was for the masses, Sustainable Energy Without the Hot Air. We actually spent quite a few sessions on this. And this was a really interesting book because it put into numbers all of our activities, so everything that we do. From
you should
driving,
lift it up higher. So, yeah, there you go.
So from driving to our food, to our all different kinds of transportation, to our energy use, it put everything into kilowatt hours per day. And so it was a really useful kind of metric in measuring our footprints. And then all of the different renewable energy sources. And this includes all the low carbon energy sources, including solar, wind, geothermal, yes, nuclear is safe, and many others as well. And we got a lot of male interest for this, but we actually, I think because it was more on the engineering side, but our next book is going to be more about, that we think is a very broad interest, and we're going to have our next book club next month. This is The Genius of Birds, and we're going to be talking about some fascinating bird species, how smart these creatures are. We've been reading in the news about some of the bird losses in terms of population declines. There's a whole host of reasons as to why that's been happening, and we want to bring that to light as well. But we also want to learn about these special creatures and they go way back in time. So we're going to be touching upon this. It's in a more of a novel form, so it should be highly accessible for everyone.
I'm excited.
These are some that's our upcoming book club. And we continue with the moderate family-friendly hikes every month. Some of the other events that we host as well throughout the year, extracurricular-wise, include, we post a number of events, as I was saying, these lectures at Jet Propulsion Lab or UCLA about earth science, atmospheric science, sometimes even planetary science as it relates to earth science. And there's some fascinating connections there.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
That's it. There you go.
The dogs say we're done, and that's good.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll link all of those to the show pages, and we'll link all of that to our YouTube page as well, so you can kind of grab on Facebook. You can kind of see what's all coming up, because I think it's really important. If you're in the area, that's great. If you're not, how do people give you cash? Where is there a place to donate if they want to donate to Transition to Green?
It would be through meetup.com.
Meetup.com.
Under Transition to Green.
I love it.
And yes, and the t-shirts are $18.
I love it. That sounds awesome. Outstanding. Yeah. Well, hey, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, both Diana and Dr. Terence. Thank you so much for not only being on the show, but for what you do. What you do is important. It's wonderful. I am blessed to have you on the show, on the official Do Good Better podcast. Hey, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We had
a great time.
Bye, Patrick.
Bye, Patrick.